let's go. Thanks. Approval of F&A meetings from November meeting. Any objections? Okay, approved. Fabulous. Samantha, I'll ask you to review the manager report.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Rickards. All right. So with the mainline greenway, so there's still no word on that. I did reach out to Kimberly Bezak and Jean Barat to see if they could check in with Lower Marion Township about where the township is at with that. Because basically the borough is, is kind of waiting on the township to finalize things up before we do anything with that. The county transportation grant, actually a update today on that. We received the contract paperwork today to fill out. So me and the borough engineer will work on that, and that'll be due back to the county by the end of January. Once that's done, the county will give us a notice to proceed, which means we can start incurring expenses that the grant will reimburse us for. And then at that point will be when the borough engineer will finish up the design. We'll get bid documents put together for council to review and approve, and we'll get it out to bid. Let's see here, as we talked about before, the Haverford sidewalk and storm sewer project is delayed until March of next year. The Public Works Department has started, because this is dated December 8th, the Public Works Department has started moving the skate equipment over to the borough office to do some refurbishment before it gets put out on the court. There's some signage that that has been put up at the current tennis court area to notify people about the upcoming skate park. And so hopefully in the next little bit here, we can get that kind of going. The usual sort of notes, office is open, masks are required, you can rent the multi-purpose room. LED, we're just about wrapped that up. I had a meeting this week with the lighting consultant, and we have determined a solution to that, which will be discussed with the Public Health and Safety Committee. Borough offices will be closed for upcoming holidays on December 24th and December 31st. And then if anyone from council or the public needs me, I will be out of the office from December 17th to December 22nd. Happy to take any other questions or comments.
Okay, Fred? Bob? Can I ask about the skate park? Is there any kind of grand opening, ribbon cutting, social media, some sort of announcement other than it just...
I think I want to wait until I know it's actually ready before setting a date for that. But I absolutely think we should do something like that, especially now the borough does have its own pair of ribbon cutting scissors.
This is true. We should put them to use.
So yeah, absolutely with the infrastructure committee, I want to talk about those exact sort of plans, yeah.
And I know this is an infrastructure question, but do we think the skate park will be set up prior to school break?
When is school break?
Next Wednesday?
No.
Okay, so not before the new year?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, so kids with scooters and skateboards for holidays are going to wait until 2022.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks. In the treasurer report?
Sure. So, we're just about at the end of the year here. It's been a pretty good year financially for the borough. Again, as we talked about many times, albeit due to a number of one-time sort of things, but I'll just note briefly with our top line numbers, with our, let's see here, revenues through the end of November were, here we go. Let's see here. We are projecting that revenues will be more than $200,000 higher than budgeted. A large chunk of that is the ARPA money, but there are various other revenue sources that have been, some have been up, some have been down, but it's mostly been good news on the revenue side. On the expense side, however, is where the borough has really done great with the budget and its finances this year, again, due to some one-time staffing situations. Let's see here. The borough looks like on the expense side, that we are going to be $140,000 below last year, and pretty well in line with what we budgeted, looks like. Take a quick look at that. So the general news is, is that we've had a good financial year, albeit due to one-time infusions of cash and one-time staffing changes. But I think we did a good job with the 2022 budget of being cognizant of that and adjusting to those situations.
Any questions about treasury report? Okay. Moving on, I see we have 4 action items for the meeting. The refinance the tax rate, just the approval of the fee schedule, and of course the budget. Anything in particular that you feel like we should discuss, Samantha, or you'd like us to comment on prior to that full meeting?
Sure. So looking at those items, the tax rate resolution, we're not increasing taxes or sewer or trash rates for 2022. So I don't think there's too much talk out there. The budget, hasn't really, the only thing that changed with the budget actually, as a heads up, none of the numbers changed for the budget. I did update the account codes on the budget to more be in line with the state chart of accounts and make the budget a little bit easier to read. But again, no content, no numbers were actually changed with that. Let's see here. Items for cancel. For the debt, the staff from PFM will be at the council meeting at 7:30 to talk more in detail on that. If this committee is, if anyone has any questions or comments, I'm happy to take them now, but PFM will be at the council meeting to talk about it as well.
Any preemptive questions?
I would appreciate a little more time to look at that.
So unfortunately, with the nature of these refis, the way it works is because interest rates change continually, the banks wait as close as possible to the meeting in order to submit their rates. So we literally didn't get the rates until yesterday, and then PFM needed this morning, do their analysis of them.
Okay.
So I agree that time would be nice, but unfortunately the banks don't give us that opportunity.
Is it normal only to get a couple responses to an RFP like this?
For a borough of ours, well, we did get, we got 4 or 5.
They're different. They're like 3 for one and then 2 for another, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. For a borough of our size, yeah. And I think part of the situation too, just with the, and again, PFM will know better than I would, but my guess would be too, with, just uncertainty with interest rates going forward, whether that affected banks' willingness to get involved in a refi as well. But the good news is, PFM will explain later, even with the bids we got, there's going to be opportunities for the borough to save money. So.
Yeah, it looks like one of the lowest bid we got for one was kind of exactly what PFM had projected in their initial.
That's pretty close, yeah.
1.7%, that's what they projected. So, so it should, the initial numbers from their initial projections should be good.
And that's the comments that I have about those items for council.
Did you want to update us in the public on the descriptions?
Sure, yeah. So I had an opportunity to do my first round as borough manager of job evaluations, and the model that, working with council that I've adopted, for myself as well as the staff that I supervise, is a self-eval followed up by a supervisor eval based on someone's job description, which we talked about in this committee actually, a few months back. And doing that really gave me an opportunity to really go through everyone's job descriptions and really, you read them, of course, when you approve them, but it's one thing just to read them, and it's nothing to actually have to implement them in this way. And I realized when doing that, there were some tasks that didn't fit up with what the staff person was actually doing. And I think when we envisioned the positions, we had certain visions that once we actually started doing them in the admin office, did not work the way we thought they would. So these job description updates are intended to, really show, and it's only a few minor changes really, to show what the assistant to the manager and the office manager, what specifically they are doing, especially if they're going to be evaluated based on the job description. And the memo I provided does summarize what those changes are.
Well, going back to a couple of things that were mentioned. So I apologize for pulling the schedule of bills out of the consent agenda, but I felt it was important to just let people know these are the taxes are going to remain constant going into next year. It's one of the major things we have to focus on as council. And on the schedule of fees, you took so the building thing, you brought it back to the old.
Actually, thanks for pointing that out. So I give this committee credit for the assignment you gave borough staff to take a look at our 20 prior building permit fees and to compare what that permit cost the borough to have your fees review it, inspect, and all that, and what the new proposed fee schedule would have brought in on those real actual permits that came in. And when we looked at that, we found a substantial drop in revenue, and more concerningly, again, the gross revenue number isn't what bothers me. My concern is making sure the borough recovers its costs, and we were only like barely right in line with what the costs were, which doesn't factor in the borough's overhead as well, like the amount of time Missy spends, the office manager spends answering permit-related questions and all that sort of thing. So for now, we've decided that we should recommend leaving the building permit fees where they are until we have a chance to further kind of investigate that. We do think the other fee changes are, necessary. A lot of them are fees we're not collecting right now that we're providing services for, and a number of them are for zoning projects as well, which are a lot more straightforward than building permit projects. So my thanks to the committee for having us look into all that.
I appreciate all of the flat fees that you've been able to institute here versus the percentage-based fees. It just makes it so much more logical. I'm curious about what this means here where it talks about the new construction explicitly added to avoid confusion. Does that mean that you designate this as brand new construction versus renovation?
Exactly, yeah, because people would get confused about where the fee for those were, yeah.
And thanks, Fred, for pulling that out, because I do think it's important to underscore that we're not raising taxes, that we should be explicit about that more than just a comment.
Yeah.
Because certainly there would be conversations if we were raising taxes, so thanks.
Especially in the year where we had a surplus.
Right, for sure, for sure. Okay, if we're done here, then I'll move on to information items. Okay, and the first is that comprehensive plan implementation review. All committees have been made aware, the staff and office been aware. We did discuss having a town hall scheduled for 2022. I suggest we do that via Zoom, given the COVID numbers at this point. I think an in-person town hall is probably not wise at the moment. What do you think? Fred?
Unless we waited until we could do it outside, I think outside would be fine. But, it's not an ideal place for a town hall, exactly, outside.
Samantha, do you have any thoughts to this? Do we want to hold off on a date, maybe it's in the new year?
So again, I defer to council on that. I mean, my general thought with anything COVID related is to follow whatever the current CDC guidelines are. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time to get a town hall together. It's not like we're going to do it next month or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're probably looking at this, if we want to do it as soon as possible, we're probably looking at the spring to really get all the details together and get all our presentations and the information we want to present together. So I mean, I think for now, maybe we could focus on getting the content together we want. And then as we get closer, we could see what the situation is and maybe figure out if there's some sort of, I don't think there's a, from my time here in the borough so far, I don't think there's a great outdoor location for it. So, yeah, I think we'll just have to see what the COVID situation is when we, as we get a little bit closer to actually picking a date for it. And I think you're right, it might have to be a Zoom situation or at least a hybrid depending on where the numbers and all are.
I don't want it to fall off the radar, so if we can just kind of put it on a mental calendar, kind of pencil it in for April 2022, so it's not one of those things that just kind of slips away. I think that we owe it to just kind of finish the loop in the process to tee it up for budget season.
True.
That will start in the summer anyway.
Agreed, that would be perfect.
I think we could probably plan to do it in the big room, in the multi-purpose room. I mean, COVID rates tend to go up in the winter and down in the spring, and we could probably open the windows in April, so that should be fine.
So I think that sounds great, having a target kind of date for it, and I think that the other thing I'd be, from my perspective, to know is what sort of content does the committee want to present, and how can myself and the staff support the committee in that. I'm very grateful to the members of the committee for putting together the spreadsheet that you did. It actually was really helpful for me, being still relatively new to the borough as manager, help kind of get a sense of where the priorities of the borough are per the comp plan. And I just didn't have time to do it, but I certainly would at some point would love to add a few of my own comments on each of the items here. Because there are certain things, to be fair, like council wouldn't necessarily know, there are certain things with a few of these items that staff have done that council may not be aware of. And I think that's, as we talked about before, the other great opportunity about this, and it gives everyone a chance to get everyone, staff, council, residents, on the same page about where we're at and what we're doing.
Yeah, actually, Michelle and I, when we went through the boot camp, the novice boot camp, when we were first elected, had talked about wouldn't it be neat to do some sort of a most interactive kind of town hall event through finance and administration. I always said if I'm ever on FNA, I would love to do this, where you really almost do kind of like a monopoly money case study scenario, which we've all partaken in, because I mean, we do get a lot of comments as council members, like why doesn't council do X, Y, or Z, fill in the blank, and you explain that's an awesome idea, are you cool with having your taxes raised? And they say like, whoa, no. But I think an exercise to understand how we think about being good stewards of tax dollars and kind of explain the process outside of the day-to-day council meetings actually kind of ties in with a comprehensive plan review. And you even said in your budget review, like here's the standard dollar picture that we see at every budget meeting and review to understand where our tax dollars and how they're allocated. But particularly given we're going through such change, really historic change in our community, I think it might be a really neat educational opportunity to do kind of an interactive review of finance, and then overshadowed with a comprehensive plan to say, and this is how we make decisions about that. Nobody on this council takes being stewards of tax dollars lightly. And we want to really use that community-driven plan, obviously while being responsible to roads, sewers, all of the basic municipal functions. So maybe with a little more time, we can think about how to create kind of a kickoff event for the community. But I'm an educator, so I'm clearly bringing something that I do in my day job, so if nobody else is interested.
No, I think that's a wonderful idea. I mean, I'd love to attend and participate and help you and make it happen, absolutely. But I think you could pull it off. I love the idea. I think also it'd be great to invite high school students and invite students to participate with their parents. And it can even be a kind of an event for, it's a great lesson in civics.
It's a
and
great
civic engagement, and we're at a scale where we can do that.
That's a great idea, because I definitely think too, as we talked about, and Samantha, you and I have talked about this conversations too, unless something is written in your budget, then it's hopeful or it's aspirational, but really the budget is a government's value statement. So we can say we care about the environment, we can say we care about public health and safety, et cetera. But unless we have figured out how to put that in that budget, it feels almost performative at times. And I think it's a really important civical lesson to say, you need to move beyond Instagram posts. If you're going to advocate for change in your community, this is how it's done. Okay, so let's just put something on the spring, and it's to be determined in the new year after the reorg.
So maybe if I may propose, maybe for the next, just kind of thinking from now to April, maybe the January meeting of this committee, we'll talk more about what the format of that meeting will be and what materials we want to present. February, we have draft materials for the committee to review, and then March, we finalize the materials and the structure and all that.
Perfect. Great. Good. Moving to the NBA allocation oversight. When we pivot, just for kind of some history and context, when we pivoted that $12,000 that the borough had been given to Ed Bridgeway for communication, we pivoted it to the NBA, and then the NBA dispersed that as they saw fit. We've now more than doubled that in support of events that were planned by the 4th of July committee that have now folded into the NBA. And just as we remember, we said there probably should be some kind of earmarks to that. Now, when we originally pivoted the 12,000, it was suggested by the office staff that essentially they hold the money, and every purchase or time that the business association would come in, my thoughts exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought these are, as a professional organization, and it just doesn't seem like the opportunity cost of the NBA coming in and saying we printed $78 worth of flyers seemed silly to me, to have that kind of level of micromanagement, but it does feel appropriate that perhaps we have some sort of reporting system so we can say to the public, this is how your tax dollars were spent.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, for better or for worse, my general outlook, when dealing with borough staff or with outside organizations or with anyone in general in my life is that, you're kind of innocent until proven guilty. I think there's a certain trust level you have to have in the partners you're working with and the people you're working with. And yeah, playing like a mother may I game seems a little too much. I did find this resolution, I did speak with the, I apologize, I don't know what Ed's actual title is. The president. I did speak with the president of NBA, and he was very comfortable with the idea. Basically what was described in this resolution that council passed in 2019, which calls for the NBA quarterly to just, basically send the borough an invoice and, talk about what they had, spent the money on. And, the NBA president seemed fairly comfortable with something like that. So I think that'll be a good system that balances accountability while also giving the NBA the freedom to do what they need to do to support the borough.
Perfect. So you'll manage an annual kind of oversight and invoice with the NBA. Can I ask that this is actually kind of sliding in, well, I guess it's a little administration, a little infrastructure. So again, just some back history here. We have multiple organizations, nonprofit organizations that do community events and have asked the borough for storage over the years. And for borough storage. So for example, so for example, the Dickens Festival and the NBA has the costumes stored in, Chris Jackson's basement, Sweet Mabel's basement, the Ridgeway's basement. The barrels that we use for the Dickens Festival are currently hidden behind MIDA, which is going to be an issue at some point because they were never given the space. The only community organization that was given borough storage space was the 4th of July committee. That equipment has been sold. So I am wondering if perhaps could we allocate some of that public works space to
So I apologize, we didn't have a chance before the meeting to talk about this.
Okay, should we
I
table
did
it?
speak with the
Okay.
Public Works manager, and he was really excited to have that space again.
Okay, perfect, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, enough said.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm open to trying to find other, if council thinks it's appropriate, I'm open to trying to find other space for it. That doesn't have to be, that spot.
Okay.
There was a conversation years ago, 10 years ago, about, there was a former manager had this idea of putting some kind of a shed somewhere, like in a parking lot somewhere, and storing the NBA stuff. Especially, I think he was concerned about the Dickens items, because there's those carts and the barrels, those kind of things. It just sort of pointed to our need for maybe some additional storage somewhere. I've noticed over the years that sometimes there's like temporary storage containers on the parking lot. I'm not sure who those belong to. Maybe the NAA has a storage container with
I
some.
think that's actually the library.
Okay, so the library. So it's like, I've just noticed like some organizations seem to have some temporary storage space coming and going, and that may be sort of a short-term measure, but it definitely indicates that there's sort of, the community may have a need that we can address.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a storage space inventory and see if there's anything any current space that could be used.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd rather treat it on like a case-by-case sort of basis. Like, I mean, there are, in the multi-purpose room, I mean, there are items stored in there that belong to New Horizons Senior Center, that belong to the junior women, and then we talked about actually the potential of storing some items from the Narberth Civic Association in the building here.
Right.
So I mean, I think if I got a better sense of how much the volume of things we're looking to store, I mean, yeah, I think we could figure out a spot for it.
Do we have a basement in this building?
We do not.
There's a basement in the library though. It has like the
Yes.
Christmas decorations, doesn't it?
I'll be honest with you, I've never been in the basement of 81's.
It has the Christmas stuff is all stored there, for the street lamps.
I'm impressed you know that. Well, I didn't mean to take you off guard.
Yeah, and I apologize
It's
that
just
we didn't have a
because, it's
chance
funny,
to chat
Ed
yet.
and my husband, Brad Robinson, and some others moved tables kind of multiple times trying to find the homes of where they could be stored. So it was on my radar. I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
No, I'm very open to finding a home somewhere here at 100 Conway, or somewhere in a borough-owned space for it, yeah.
And it is interesting to think even just perhaps it should be on all of our radar as we begin to think about the Save on Property investment in this building as well. Just, what are the community needs?
There's a large storage area over at the Sabine building. I'm not sure if it's, I don't think there's any tenant using it. At least there wasn't last time.
So
I
I've
walked
been,
through the building, those three large rooms that you enter from Essex Avenue.
right, we got walked through 201 Sabine a few times, but again, I'll admit that I couldn't tell you as of this moment what is going on in each specific room, but we could certainly consider that for our long-term Sabine conversation.
I don't think we've ever leased that space, but I think somebody may be using it anyway.
Okay.
But anyway, if I would recommend if the NBA president wants to talk to me about that,
Okay.
I'd love to have that conversation with him.
Great. And that was actually pre-pandemic. We talked to the Civic Association about storing all the reusable goods and having some sort of kind of sign out for when communities have events, that all the hundreds of plates that the Civic has collected or napkins, but needing some sort of space to do that. So maybe that's just a general, as works come, say, to contact you and we can figure something out.
Yeah, that would be perfect, yeah.
Okay. Moving on then to Borough Communications. If before, I know Samantha, you have some updates to report. I did want to bring up something that we had talked about and just reconsidering perhaps moving our weekly council meetings from Wednesday to Thursdays. Given that, we have public meetings often 9, 10 o'clock, they go into executive session. And I mean, really, I think we haven't been home before 11 for months and months and months and months. And that hump day of, not getting home till 11:30 midnight is a rough one. So there were some informal discussions of, is this something that we can move to Thursday so we only have one more work day to get through? while not communication per se, it's something that we would want to let the public know that at least we're having that discussion. Any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can discuss it at the full council meeting, but, people were sympathetic to that when you brought it up before, so.
It used to be on Mondays, it used to be on Monday, then it's on Wednesday, then, we can choose whatever day we want. Actually, I agree with you, we just bring it up at the full council. I think it mostly matters to the people who have to be at the meeting, like more than the general public.
We should confirm that,
Yeah.
like John Walco,
That
have
everyone-
another council meeting on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great, that's something I look forward to talking about for the reorg meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Samantha, the communications?
Sure. So, following up on our previous meeting conversation on this, I did find that the borough did a couple years ago create a communications plan, a lot along the lines of what we talked about at our previous meeting. And I guess I wanted to include in your packet just to look through here and see, is there anything in particular, maybe not tonight or not, I don't know, but if there's anything in particular about this plan we want to change or update, or if it's just a matter of making sure the borough is actually doing what this plan says we should be doing.
Right?
I mean, I'll admit
It
it-
seems sensible when I looked at it. I mean, I don't remember seeing anything that jumped out at me, so I had no real comments on it.
I'm scrolling back to it now. Which page is it? Of the packet?
Let's see.
I scrolled back. I read it. I had the same response that Fred
It's
had.
about 2/3 down, 3/4 down.
Page 50?
I don't see page numbers on that. 53, okay.
Thank you.
I did get a couple emails about just an appreciation of the Sabine Avenue and the alerting of the meeting that was both on Facebook and went out via an email. So I do think really not just utilizing social media for the once a week flash, but some really big items from committees as well as just full council meeting, and to ask the office to help promote those. And then utilizing the kiosk, because I obviously don't want to assume that folks are on social media, which is why there's really kind of that comprehensive communication plan that Michelle Carroll authored that.
Right.
And then I don't know what her responsibility was for implementing that.
Yeah, so maybe that's the next step. Maybe is I can follow up with Michelle about this plan and to see what, in the last 2 years or so has, what was the implementation, how do we continue to build on it. And that might be just more of a, for now, it might just be more of an administrative thing than a committee kind of thing.
So the two things I saw that I wasn't sure that we were currently doing, distribute welcome to Narberth packet to new residents, and Narberth Borough information table with brochures and packets at local events. That, I don't know if I want to ask borough staff to be sitting out during, 5 hours of a community event. So that might be a bit of a, we want to discuss that one. And I don't know about the welcome to Narberth packet. I feel like, does the business association already do that?
So that was something, the welcome to
Narberth.
Narberth.
The Civic does it.
Yeah, hold on. The Civic Association and the Narberth Business actually got together and put like a little coupon packet together. And then the Civic really just said, if you can let us know when someone moves in, we'll go deliver it. And I think that that's where the ball really got dropped. So we can absolutely revisit that. We can contact the Civic and see if they're interested in continuing that. And I do wonder if between council volunteering or even just, getting one of those group nice signs that say, new to Narberth, welcome, scan this QR code, or look here, that perhaps it doesn't need to be a person sitting for 5 hours, because I agree with you, but hey, welcome new Narbs, learn more here, and direct folks to the webpage.
It's way more free.
Yeah, or I would just, do a QR code, that way we can change it.
Yeah, and I'll admit, I do enjoy attending the events in town. It's a big part of why I enjoy having this job here and working for you all. But I also do appreciate not having to sit at a table for 5 hours. So I like the sound of that plan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I thought you were going to still sit at the table. I was saying you could sit at the table and hold the QR code.
Yeah, well, I can look back to the Civic Association and see if that's something you're willing to pick up. Is that something that the office would say, hey, someone
Yeah.
can? Okay.
Yeah, we could, the office could definitely make the board and the QR code and all that. And then if we could, check with Civic to see if they still want to be involved in distributing the new, the new resident packets, or if that's something the staff needs to support more. I think if that's something, I mean, I'm very grateful if Civic wants to do it. I'm all for Civic doing it, but I also respect the fact that they're volunteers, and that is something that staff need to assist with. We certainly can.
Why don't we start by, I'll reach out to, hold on there, public comment guy. I see his line way down over there. Why don't I start with, I'll reach out to the Civic Association, ask if they would like to reboot their Welcome to Narberth, see if perhaps they want to create a signage or something, and volunteers. If they don't, we can come back and revisit.
There's such an extraordinary opportunity with this QR code idea of coordinating the Civic Association, the NBA, and the borough government to be able to provide links to anyone new, to all of the organizations, and to all of the online materials that are available. And they don't even have to all reside, say, in any one organization's website. It's a wonderful idea. And actually, it could include a little survey, perhaps, for someone new to the town.
Absolutely.
So that they can get people thinking about what resources are available here.
Yeah. And one of the things that well, this isn't really council pertaining, but saying the use of the QR code and even Venmo for donations, that was one of the things for years and years and years I tried as I held buckets for the 4th of July, and you could see it progress from when we moved in to the end. No one carries cash, myself included. I'm saying if you just said Venmo or scan this, folks would be willing to give. We were at the last meet and greet, and a woman came up. Oh, it was your first meet and greet.
Yeah.
A woman came up and said, every time I'm at the park, I want to donate money. Do you think you could put out like one of those little wooden boxes that you see at other places? To which I thought, no, I don't think collecting cash in a wooden box is a great idea. However, what is a great idea is love our parks, so do we. You want to make a donation to the shade tree or the businesses, that we could capitalize off this a little bit. So we can encourage the NBA and Civic to think about that and ask how council can support them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm getting a little off the beaten path here, but in my previous employment, there was a 501c3 organization created for the purposes of collecting donations on behalf of the borough, that borough council appointed the members of, and it was something pretty successful. I mean, all of that, when it first was created, I was like, oh, this is such a dumb idea. People pay taxes already, why would they want to donate? But I was pleasantly surprised. The group raised, in the 2 years that it existed while I was working there, I want to say over $40,000. So
yeah, that's fireworks, and then some. And you know what, though, looping back to that NBA oversight then, I should also add, since we're kind of wandering a little bit, is that John Walco did actually, our solicitor, for folks at home, did volunteer kind of pro bono to look over the fireworks contract in the NBA. Additionally, actually, someone at the Oktoberfest said, hey, I have a company that wants to make a donation, but they needed this 501 distinction. So these are ways that the council and the office have supported the NBA and saying we can help take a look at this. Our solicitor has also offered to take a look at that so they can do exactly what Samantha is suggesting. Okay. Office reception area, if we're nothing else?
great. So a few months back, I had brought to the attention of this committee, some very vague concerns about the office area and some ideas. And this committee charged the staff with coming up with a more serious proposal, more detailed proposal with alternative options. And that is what the memo provided to you all is. To recap it very briefly, and I'd like to give credit to Michelle Carroll for putting this together. There are a few different reasons why we would like to make changes to the current lobby area. I do want to emphasize for Michelle and I, it is very important that we continue to maintain the office as an open and friendly place. I think I think there was a phrase thrown around at one point about we don't want the office to look like or feel like a quote-unquote pawn shop. And, that's definitely, we definitely don't want that either on the staff side. However, there is, we feel some middle ground between the current wide open situation and the pawn shop situation. And that's the needle that this memo attempts to thread. The specific problems that we run into is, on a pretty routine basis, we do have to deal with the public not wearing masks. And so myself and Michelle are pretty good about telling people to wear a mask, and we do have the disposable mask available. But that still is a thing we have to contend with. Michelle found some research that speaks, to the fact that PPE is one of the least effective ways of controlling the general public in terms of COVID, because again, you have to make them actually wear the PPE as opposed to infrastructure changes, which 100% of the time are going to be in place. The next sort of thing she mentions is that
Samantha, did you mean to disconnect Zoom?
no. It's just the TV thing.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
For some reason, this TV, I don't know why it keeps disconnecting.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I didn't
Yeah, for the
really lost
council
it.
meeting, I'm just going to plug the HDMI cable in. So anyway, thank you for pointing that out to me. Let's see here. Yes, another issue we run into is despite having the table and chair barrier currently, people don't seem to get the hints about that and have no issue just moving the stool out of the way to walk right over to whoever they want to speak with. And it's really disruptive. We have a setup where we have the office manager position right by the entryway, because sometimes you walk into an office and it's confusing, like who am I supposed to be talking to? And we have it kind of clearly set up, that this is the person you need to talk to then get directed where you need to go. Because sometimes people will then walk over to the person who's not the person who needs to be helping them or that sort of thing. Or myself or Michelle or Regina will be in the middle doing a financial transaction or something like that. But you really need to take a second to finish before being interrupted. The other challenge is even when someone does stay in the area and talks with the office manager, people can get pretty loud in the office sometimes. And again, that is kind of disruptive to me and the assistant to the manager, Michelle, and our tax collector, Regina. So then in addition, another concern, this is a little bit alternate, not to be dismissed, but less likely to happen, but still is a thing that could happen, is, unfortunately, violence does happen at borough offices, municipal offices, and, just out in the world. There's some specific examples provided in the memo of violent incidents that have occurred at, municipal buildings. And so obviously that's, a concern for staff as well. And then finally, as was mentioned at the previous meeting, our workers' comp insurer, who provides risk control services to the borough, recommended in favor of these sort of security enhancements as well. So I asked Michelle to find examples, because I believe the example provided by our workers' comp insurer was a little bit on the extreme sort of side of what we want to do. So Michelle reached out to various municipalities, some smaller than us, some our size, some bigger than us, and provided some photo as well as descriptive examples of different lobbies. And then I provided my own little commentary in the memo of my past experience where, again, I worked for a town where public service was very important. Having a certain small town charm, for lack of a better word, was something that was important to council and the community. And, again, finding that balance of addressing those same sort of concerns while still preserving that. And then finally, when COVID happened, that really pushed, my former employer into installing some additional infrastructure protections in the lobby area. And it was a little bit of change for people at first, but I think ultimately after, a few months of the office being open again post-COVID, people got used to it. And it was kept open enough to where it still kind of had somewhat of an open feeling, but you couldn't just, breathe right on anyone or walk right into the admin bullpen, kind of like what we have here in Margaret. So, and finally, the last thing Michelle points out that in terms of if we did decide to move forward with anything with this, to actually pay for it, our workers' comp insurer provides funding to the member municipalities each year to implement improvements that will improve workplace safety. And we do have funding available from that money to help offset some of the costs of a project like this. So that is the presentation here for this committee to consider. If it's something you're willing to have us actually mock something up or get pricing or whatever, or if you're not comfortable moving forward with it.
Can I ask a clarifying question before I go around? We approved the funds to have all the documents scanned. Once that happens, you have 2 offices that are available on the second floor, but I don't see that you considered that in the memo. Is there any consideration of, again, since we already have, or you have, and Michelle have created a solution for really freeing up those 2 office spaces, is to considering moving 2 offices upstairs in addition to any type of manipulation downstairs?
I think my concern with that would be, I think prior management may have had some sort of temporary arrangement like that. And I don't know, for me, I don't know what prior management did. I don't want to, I don't want to get into anything like that, sorry. For me, I feel like doing something like that would maybe veer too much away from being there for the residents. Even if, I don't know, I guess even if I'm occupied, I'd rather be down in that area and able to help. If a situation comes up that, the office manager needs support on.
You're an earshot away.
Yeah, I'd rather still be down there for those situations.
Okay. Just a question. Bob?
Is the space size just about right for what you do?
Oh,
The
yeah.
area you do in the office, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just really appreciated the illustrations that you provided and the description. It was really very helpful in kind of creating options about what it could feel like. And I would hope that our committee could encourage you to take next steps, very next concrete steps in either having, if you need help with interior design, finding someone to help you do that, with the construction design, whatever it is that you need to take those next steps and explore the options. Options plus and cost, because it's going to take some design engineering. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Fred?
Yeah, I still have some general concerns about isolating borough staff from the public. I understand that we need a safe environment to work, and I want to make sure that any steps that we take are not going to cause people to come in and feel distant or feel alienated, from the government. I think it ought to be a welcoming place. So that's my concern, is that the office remain welcoming to people who come in. I'm also wondering if everybody in the office is in favor of this move. So I want to be sure that Regina, as well as
Yeah, it's something. It's definitely something that Michelle and I mentioned to Missy and Regina, and not to put words in anyone else's mouth, but I got the sense that they were supportive of this idea. And to your first point, I absolutely agree. However much we can continue to maintain an open environment, I'm all for it. If we're able to find something, like I said, that provides a little bit more security, but continues to keep the office as open as possible to the public. I do think that both of those things are very important.
It's interesting you say that, Fred. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Just real quick. I agree with you, obviously. We want folks to feel like we have an approachable government, meaning council and staff, but I don't think it's the expectation that a neighbor walks in and has kind of carte blanche access to the manager. And in fact, I think it's really important that the manager be doing higher level tasks and called when needed. I personally couldn't work in an open environment, so I appreciate the safety. COVID will pass. Shootings, sadly, are epidemic in our country, and we have more shootings in schools, I suspect, than we do in borough offices. What I am thinking from my perspective is just the work function. Like everything you say, I'm guilty of. I walk in, I move the chair, I start chatting everybody up. I cannot imagine having to work in that environment and getting anything done. So safety, I appreciate, but just efficiency, I guess my expectation is that you're not available for every person that walks in.
Yeah, no, I just think, I agree with Fred completely, and I think I get that you also share that sensibility, and so I'm assuming that the devil's sort of in the details here. You know, it's all about how you design it. It's all about how you design the solution so that you provide thresholds of privacy versus kind of a full public engagement, and that those spaces are sized appropriately so that, you know, you allow the public to say congregate and chat with each other, because one of the nice things about coming to Borough Hall is seeing your neighbors here. Yeah. So it's like, but how you do that, you don't necessarily want to have lots of conversations right in the threshold of the door while the borough staff are working there, right? So it's like how that gets designed. So, but I love the image, for example, of the Swarthmore solution, because like there's kind of like a more intimate space in there where a person sort of can be in there and you know, working with a borough staff person and feel like they're getting really personal attention, but there's also sort of an outer space where people can gather and chat with each other without disrupting the administrative staff. And I imagine there's even a third level there where you could be invited in, say maybe into like a little conference room, so then you could meet with a few staff. So I think it's like kind of, I think you can create it. There's so much space down there, and maybe even still have if it works for you guys, have your open.
I'd say I do actually like having all that I was a little concerned about when I first started here, but I've found for lack of a better term, the bullpen area actually generally does work fine. Because the nice thing about the desks that we have is they have like dividers that you can raise and lower. So like generally Michelle and I have like the dividers, most of the time have the divider down. I mean there's still some divider, like we can see the top of each other's eyes. But if like we're both on a phone call, or if one of us is on a phone call, you know, you raise your divider higher up kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you just wanted a minimal solution, you could think about replacing those chairs with some sort of gate, having like a hip high gate.
Yeah.
That would sort of be the minimal change that might people wouldn't feel able to like, walk right through it. I mean, it would stop people there, but it'd still be fairly open versus creating something more like an isolated glass booth.
And I'm willing to try iterative solutions. I mean, you could certainly. I mean, when I started in New Britain, that's actually what it was. There was it was a swinging gate. It wasn't a gate that you could secure. But I'd be open to trying that to start. If we just put in like a secure gate there, and see if that improves anything, and then maybe over the table. My only thing I throw out there in terms of thinking about COVID is maybe like a plexiglass thing over the over the table we have down there right now, but we don't need to necessarily throw up a bunch of drywall or anything like that. As step one, it could be we start at the gate and go from there.
This is just like maybe drilling down into this more than you want to, Cindy, but that dimensions of that little space when you first come in, that's like a remnant of the counters that were there before. And those counters were more like, they weren't even 36 inches high. They were like high countertop, like 40 inches or 45 inches cabinet, 48-inch high countertops. And there was a gate.
Oh.
It's swung like a swinging gate that went in, and a lot of like people would kind of come into that area and kind of congregate in there, and didn't just go spill off into the office. And it was kind of nice to see that whole barrier come down, because that was sort of like the intention was to create more openness. But then there was never like it's time to take the next step, like iterative, like you said, and just figure it out. But I don't think there's anything sacred about that dimension. I think you should really rethink what would work best. You know what I mean? Like I know that there's like something, the floor materials change or something, but you could change that.
Right.
You know, you could fix that. You could
I
change that.
still think too, the 4 examples, while really helpful to see, those are much bigger spaces. And I do, safety side, if someone comes in with a gun, your gate, whether it locks or not, is not going to do you a whole hell of a lot of good. But I do think that it's more than the physical space that makes the community feel like we are all accessible. And it is because you return phone calls, it's because you answer emails, it's because, you know, we have this whole other host.
Yes.
I do think as well, when you look at the workforce, it's the folks that have often, you know, everyone went to this open floor span, then a pandemic hit. If you did have individual offices where you could take a mask down and work for a couple hours, I appreciate that, as well as having the ability to really concentrate on a task. So I think we have a spectrum of responses here, but I would be comfortable with saying we were going to explore these as maybe even cleaning them up as conference rooms or like concierge service. You know, Regina's doing taxes and needs to not be disturbed by every chatty neighbor, could come in and work in an office. I think I kind of trust the office to say here are our needs, given that we want to be accessible and community facing, but these are both safety, COVID, violence, but also work efficiency, and maybe ask them to bring us back something more than just like the gate, but really,
Yeah.
you know, are we talking about glass cubicle? I mean, really, what are those needs? Fred, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a kind of a minimal option, you know, along with everything else. I don't want to dictate, you know, what exactly should or shouldn't be in a proposal. But I would like to see at least one that's kind of what you would consider the minimal changes to improve the office experience, as well as some larger ones.
All right, well, I'm going to do that then. Yeah, for your next meeting, I'll have Michelle look into getting some actual, you know, something for you actually to consider, because we're just talking in theoreticals right now. And we can, you know, get into it and take it apart as we need and tweak it as we need and go from there.
Great. Thank you. Council rules then, if we can move on to that. We're going to discuss this. This was added, Barbara found some typos, nothing substantive, but a couple commas. I do not anticipate we will be in an Oxford comma Supreme Court situation, correct, Samantha?
I do not expect that.
Okay.
Not with this document.
Got it. Just some typos were revised and added in our packet. But is there anything we feel like we want to discuss prior to full council?
Samantha, you had some questions on this, right?
Yeah, they were answered, but I just want to make sure the committee understands why we're talking about this. So there was some uncertainty as to whether council had actually updated this document or not. So just to be on the safe side, especially as we go into reorganization, because this has rules about selecting the president and all that at reorg, just making sure that everyone understands what the rules are and that we have the rules officially updated.
And Barbara wasn't on council when we were discussing
Right.
changes, so.
Correct, which is why she wrote it down the comma errors.
Yeah, and obviously I wasn't here
Yeah.
either. And also, I mean, whatever sort of again, this is above my pay grade, but just reading through it and seeing how other towns do these things, I had a couple of questions that were answered, but I don't have any recommended changes.
Bob, do you have anything to recommend about it, Fred?
No, so I think we can just recommend that we make
Okay.
the typographical changes that have been recommended. And Michelle P. might have some suggestions. She's only did the initial.
Yeah, she wrote it. Yep, so we can get back to her. Okay, the public comment, Ira.
No.
Oh, what? Jim.
It's no longer relevant.
Oh, sorry. Jim,
The whole comment.
anyone on Zoom?
We do have Councilmember Bortner as on Zoom. I'm not sure if she wants to make any comments or not.
I don't have any comments, thanks.
I did say, I wrote back because I assumed all the typos were anything that I've written on the minutes, and I did tell Samantha that once I was typing in my husband said, it's amazing you made it this smartly. So I'll take any responsibility for typos in her minutes, for sure.
Are we going to have an old business moment?
Yeah,
Okay, when will that happen?
let's go now, if there's no cut.
Only because I want to ask this question, and I've been looking for an opportunity to ask, and it's not, well, I guess it is relevant to what something we discussed when we were reviewing the comprehensive plan. We were, I guess we were looking at sort of the complete streets, the content, all the complete streets type stuff. And it occurred to me that I recall the developers of the Essex North Hadford Avenue site on the corner where the Rickman's was, that they, in some rendering they had, or maybe it was something that Montgomery County Planning Commission had created a rendering that showed kind of a large parklet or a large bump out on that corner, in addition to what's just sort of the street line, streetscape. And I'm just wondering kind of whether that, I just don't want that detail to get lost, because it seems like that there's possibly a lot of advantage to having it there across from the liquor store and across from Station Circle. But maybe even in both directions, bumping out in both directions, so that to shorten the crosswalk between, or across Essex Avenue, and also the crosswalk across North Margaret Avenue.
Yeah, I'm gonna look out the, because it's on our website, I'm gonna look up the approved plan for that property.
I looked at it, I don't think I saw it there.
If it wasn't there, then that is not a good sign for
Just
it.
wondering if there might be a possibility that we could do something, with funds that might be available for that. And it seems like the time to do it is after what, like when they have dug it all up and they're going to be replacing all the sidewalk and curb anyway.
So, unfortunately, if council didn't put that in the, as part of the approved land development plan, it would be pretty difficult to do at this point, actually.
Sure.
Because it's not property the borough owns, it's private property. So we'd have to, that'll be tricky to figure out.
Well, you're talking about the parking spaces.
No, I'm talking about in the right-of-way.
Oh,
I'm talking
okay.
about the land in the right-of-way, a parklet in the right-of-way. And in fact, the borough does have the right-of-way is extra wide there because we actually.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to on the actual property itself. Well, yeah, that's in the right of way.
No, there's a building, they're building a building on the property.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just referring.
Yeah, well, then I was very confused by what you were saying, so okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe you did, I said, it's really hard with the math. I'm talking about parklet, bump out at the crossings.
Okay.
I mean, there was that presentation from the students, the architecture students, who were in Station Circle.
No,
That's not what you're thinking of?
that's not what I'm thinking of.
But go ahead.
So I guess, I put this in a memo for council tonight in regards to outdoor dining improvements. And I think that's a great idea. I think I've heard a lot of great ideas related to complete streets and community gathering spaces and green spaces and all that. And I think I've heard a lot of really great one-off ideas. And I really think the borough needs to not do one-offs, but just needs to get a plan together and then do the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Particularly for, even if we just started at 5A.
Yeah.
I mean, to say we're going to do the entire borough might just be aspirational, but if we could say, if we just look at that 5A or to look at curb bump outs, because Bob, I appreciate you bringing that up, because we just talked about that with outdoor dining again, with needing raised crosswalks or I think one of my biggest takeaways from this bike pilot, which we discussed, is not so much actually the bike lane, but rather how much the traffic calming that happens as people are wondering, what the heck is going on, and that, we've never really used traffic calming with the built department as a tool here, and this has been a great, I think, unintended pilot.
And I guess partly there's a question in there, which is like, is there money? There's money in the stormwater budget that could be allocated towards a solution there.
There is not. So the money in the budget for stormwater is for the mapping project, which we have to do in order to do, future, well, do any future work on the roads, because in park and lead streets, because I'm very reluctant to put anything on top of the roadway until we know that everything underneath is where it should be, and honestly, we know where it is and what condition it's in.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that being said, I mean, we could certainly, depending on how the budget does in 2022, I mean, council could approve a separate allocation once we get further along with that project. There's various grant opportunities for it, like the bump outs, we're doing over near Windsor, the county grant that we got. So my general philosophy on these things is let's figure out the right thing to do, and I will find, I'll help you all find the money for it.
Okay. Thank you. And by the way, the bike lane is also an amazing bike lane. It's, in addition to being traffic calming, it's been really great to be able to use that bike lane. I mean, it's been a game changer, I feel, as a cyclist, for getting around.
Okay,
That's for another time.
great. Well, then let's close this out. It'll give us 20 minutes to stretch before our phone call. Yep, thanks.